Good evening. This is Quintus Curtius here, and this podcast is going to be about you declare yourself. You declaring yourself. And let me explain a little bit about what I mean by that. I was just reading this book that I got recently. It's a pretty good one. It's Henry Kissinger's study of leadership. It's called Leadership by Henry Kissinger: 6 Studies in World Strategy. And one of the chapters in this book is a chapter on Charles de Gaulle, the General Charles de Gaulle, who took the leadership role in France during the Second World War. Once France was defeated, he basically became leader of the Free French forces. Now, this podcast is not a discussion about de Gaulle or his personality or his politics or World War II. This is not about that. It's got nothing to do with that. What we're talking about is leadership styles here. And I thought it was significant in this book. It talks about when France was crushed, when France had just been defeated by Germany. Literally, it was just chaos. Okay, France had been just annihilated, humiliated. They had signed an armistice that was, at best, humiliating. And then there was this unknown French officer, totally unknown, more or less unknown, who had basically no men to his name, no money, no resources, no armaments, nothing. All he had was his own will and a belief in his own destiny, and a belief that he was the embodiment of France, that he himself was the agent of France's national liberation. And that's important. And this guy basically fled to London, and he issued a communique over the BBC that basically said this. It said, "The destiny of the world is at stake. I, General de Gaulle, now in London, call on all French officers and men who are at present on British soil, or may be in the future, with or without their arms, and I invite all engineers and skilled workmen from the armaments factories who are at present on British soil, or may be in the future, to get in touch with me. Whatever happens, the flame of French resistance must not and shall not die." Now, this was a pretty bold statement for a nobody. This guy had escaped to England with nothing but the clothes on his back. He had nothing. Okay, yes, he was backed by, he was supported by powerful forces in London and then later America. But at the time, he was a nobody. And he basically had to create his own, not only his own leadership role, but he had to create his own entire organization. And he did this just through sheer force of will, just by declaring it to be so. And it became so. And it just struck me from reading this, that this type of thing, I've seen this happen, obviously on a lesser scale, in the way the world works, just with life experiences, with jobs, with responsibilities. And the lesson here is that sometimes you just have to declare yourself in a role and let things fall into place around that. You can't sit around and wait for permission. You can't sit around and wait for other people's approval. You can't sit around and wait for the gods on high to anoint you to the place you want to be or the role that you want to have. Sometimes you just have to declare it. You have to say, I'm in charge. I'm running this show. I'm the boss. And this is how it's going to be, even if you have nothing to back it up. Now, in this case, de Gaulle actually did have something to back it up. He had been an army officer for many, many years. He had been a distinguished veteran of the First World War. He had been a visionary and innovative thinker between the wars. So this guy did have chops. He did have enough to back things up. But still, I think the point still stands that no one ever reached down and held his hand and said, hey, you're going to be the leader of France. You're going to be the one in charge. You're going to be in the role. In fact, it was just the opposite. He was considered to be very abrasive. He was considered to be very difficult to work with. And there were a couple different competing contenders that Churchill and Roosevelt tried to advance to replace him. And de Gaulle managed to outlast everyone else. And he did this just through force of will. And this is the point. This is the point that I'm trying to make. Sometimes you have to just declare yourself. If you want a certain type of job, sometimes you have to just declare it that you're going to do that job. If you want to have a certain type of life, you just have to will it into existence. And this holds true for whatever goal you're trying to reach, whether it's trying to attract a certain type of girl that you want, or if there are girls listening, a certain guy they want. If you're trying to target a certain type of job or a certain type of responsibility, or you're trying to reach some other goal, whatever goal it is, you just have to start doing it. You just have to do it, declare yourself that you're going to do it, and things will somehow fall into place, normally. And if they don't fall into place, then it was never meant to be. You have to give yourself a max effort, and if it doesn't fall into place, then maybe it was never meant to be. But I think you will find that in most cases, if you simply declare yourself in this role, things will begin to happen, and you will just somehow manage to generate that energy, that life force that's required to bring these things to a fruition. And I think that's important. I think that's very important to say. That's why I wanted to make a few comments about it here in a podcast, because I think a lot of what I see, and when I talk to guys, they seem to be waiting for this sort of magical alignment of the stars. Some guys seem to be waiting for some sort of magical event to occur, some confluence of terrestrial and extraterrestrial factors to come into place that will give them the permission they're looking for to pursue the goals they want in life. And I say bullshit. That is not how this works. That's not how things work. It's not. If you're waiting around for someone to give you permission to do something, you're never going to do anything. When I first started translating some of the Latin classics, you would have people sort of shrug their shoulders and give you these sort of scowling expressions. Oh, well, who are you? You're not a university professor. What experience do you have? And I didn't pay them any mind. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was capable of. I knew what I could do, and I knew that I could present it in a form that would be something that would be understood and palatable and attractive to the modern average reader. And I did it. And as far as I know, I'm probably the only man alive today who's translated so many treatises of Cicero, not even counting the other ones, Sallust and Nepos and the other translations. So again, I'm just making the point here. I'm making the point that I didn't sit around and wait for permission from someone to do something. I went out and I did it, and I made it happen, and I was successful in doing it. And the proof is in the pudding. It's been demonstrated. It's proven. And I think this point stands. I think this point really is something that guys need to internalize. You can't sit around and wait for the universe to give you permission, because the universe is never going to give you permission. You're always going to have obstacles. You're always going to have doubters. You're always going to have cynics. You're always going to have haters. You're always going to have dunces and dorks and nibblers who are going to try to prevent you from getting to where you need to be. And the only way around that is to just take the bull by the horns and make it happen. The same thing in a job. When I first started out as a lawyer, the stereotype was, oh, you're going to have all these older attorneys mentoring you and showing you. Then nobody ever did anything. Nobody ever showed me anything. Everything I learned, I had to learn by myself, through my own efforts. The types of cases I wanted, the type of research that it would take to competently represent people in these cases. I had to learn everything myself, and it worked. Because when you put in the blood, when you put in the sweat, when you put in the tears and the struggle, it shows. You know it. You declare yourself practicing in that area, and you will practice in that area. You declare yourself doing a certain task, and you will do that task. You declare yourself worthy of a certain goal, and you become worthy of that certain goal. You declare yourself. You do it. Not someone else. You have to make it happen. So that's the comment that I wanted to make on that subject. So get out there, declare yourself, and go get them.